The Phillies are scorching hot, and we're going to take a look at the Eagles' initial 53-man roster. That and much, much more when we're back here in just 10 seconds. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics Show, live here on DSM-Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button on the new DSM-Media-Philadelphia YouTube channel. It is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen with your host. I'm one half of them this morning, Dylan Davis. To my right, my co-host, Scotty, Hunter, D-Rab. What's going on? Scotty's favorite day of the week. Normally, I'm a backwards hat kind of guy. Not sure how it looks, but the Phillies are just so damn hot, Scotty. We had to pull the hat out for today. But what's going on, my man?
Hey, fair enough, man. Happy hump day to everybody out there. Yeah, we're getting through the week now, right? We're halfway there. So always a good milestone to get through. But yeah, Phillies are hot right now. The Eagles made some I guess surprising cuts, a few of them, I guess. But it'll be interesting to take a look at both of these teams right now because these are the highlights of Philadelphia right now. So yeah, we got to enjoy it while we got it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it. But welcome to the show, everybody. And happy to be back. It feels like a long ass weekend since we skipped Monday. We were a little under the weather, but nonetheless getting back to it today, man.
30-30, man. 30-30. But let's start with the Eagles this morning. Let's start with the Birds and their 53-man roster. And it wasn't just some cuts. There was a trade involved, obviously trading for another tight end. But you made a great point. Interesting. Some of the moves that Howie Roseman made, and hey, who the hell am I? I'm going to sit back and Howie we trust. But some of the moves initially are interesting. The fact that they only have 4 wide receivers active on the roster. They only have 3 linebackers, active on the roster. 4 safeties active on the roster, but yet they have 13 defensive linemen, 7 corners, 4 running backs. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but there's definitely going to have to be tweaks to this roster before the regular season starts, and I'm assuming there will be. I don't think Howie Roseman's done by any stretch. Hell, they don't even have a punter, Scotty. 4 tight ends. I can keep going. This roster so far on paper is not traditional. What sticks out to you the most by what Howie and Nick have come up with so far?
Yeah, I think it has to be the 4 tight ends, man. That caught me off guard just because when you look at the tight end room, outside of Dallas Goedert, there's nobody there that just blows you away. Like none of them blew me away in the preseason or even last season when we got to see Calcaterra and Stoll. Like they're solid, but like for them to make the cut, like to keep 4 and for it to be like as if it's like a tightly contested group. Mm-hmm. Which maybe it is. Maybe it just means the 3 of the guys that are other than Goddard just haven't been able to stand out against each other. So they had to go out and get Albert O. So maybe there's another cut coming. And then you have to add a punter, which we'll see what they do there. You can't get worse than Sipos. So I'm not, going to sit here and hate on that. The 4 wide receivers, it's interesting to me as well. If, God forbid, Smitty, AJ go down, what are we doing? Like Olamide and Quez, they just move up, right? Like, and now you just have 3 receivers. That's if one guy goes down in one game. 2 guys go down in one game, you're screwed to hell and back, right? Because now you're gonna have to flip probably Swift out to a wide receiver. You're gonna have to flip Goddard out to a wide receiver at that point, which maybe they're comfortable doing that. Maybe that's the versatility that they feel they have with the offense here. Because when I look at the offense, you kept 4 running backs, and everybody throughout training camp and preseason has talked about DeAndre Swift as if he can be a wide receiver. So if you're relying on Swift as a running back and a wide receiver, maybe you start Gainwell at running back, and then all of a sudden Swift is your Swiss Army knife that you can put anywhere on the field. Maybe that's how they're going to use him. But interesting nonetheless. 4 wide receivers, 4 tight ends. I would probably take 1 from the tight end group and add 1 to the wide receiver group in that just in that fashion. But you also have to make cuts elsewhere if you're going to be able to add a punter here at some point.
Yeah,
so.
they're definitely going to. And to Hunter's point here, I completely agree. I think there's one thing that needs to be said. It doesn't even need to be said, but I'm going to get it out there. Regardless of how we talk about how quirky this roster looks so far, with lack of depth at certain positions and maybe overkill at others, the bottom line is this roster is absolutely loaded. So no matter if we're talking about only 4 wide, we're just talking about the fact that you can't help injuries. And to Scotty's point, yeah, you can rely on Dallas Goedert with 3 other wide receivers. Your offense is still going to be one of the best in the league. But the point is, God forbid, knock on wood, Devontae Smith pulls up with a hamstring injury or A.J. Brown tweaks his ankle.
And then Quez goes down. Quez twists his ankle in the first quarter, right? And so you know what I mean? Like, now you're down 2 wide receivers. What does this team do? And then, watch out, but Penny, Rashad Penny's injured this week too, right? So now you have a lack in the running back. Right. So this is the stuff I'm thinking about. But obviously in those situations, hopefully some of these guys sneak onto your practice squad, and then you can just move them up at that point anyways. But I don't know. It's just it's weird. It's untraditional, like you said earlier.
Well, right. And when you only keep 4 wide receivers and they release the likes of Britton Covey and Devin Allen, who's our punt returner at the moment? And our kick returner, is it Boston Scott?
Right.
Who's returning kicks for this team right now?
That was one of the questions I have written down here.
It's going to be interesting, man. And Howie's not done, but definitely keeping only 4 wide receivers is definitely something that stood out to me on this roster so far, especially when you look at the tight end and running back room, and they have the same amount of active players right now. That's the weird part, right?
Yeah.
Elsewhere, looking around, I would say the one thing that stood out to me, obviously only keeping 3 linebackers. I don't think he's done there. It's interesting, although you could look at Hassan Reddick and Nolan Smith, and they have Patrick Johnson listed as an edge rusher here on the website, on the Eagles official website.
Yeah.
You could consider those guys linebackers as well. So maybe they're not as thin as we think there. I would just say when I look on the defensive side of the ball, there's definitely a couple names that I don't know if they'll be here week 1. And if they are, I'm questioning why. So we're sitting here talking about only 4 wide receivers, but Moro Ajomo and Patrick Johnson are number 12 and 13 defensive linemen on this roster. Yeah. I would just beg the question, why? Right? I look at corner, and to Swope's point, I look at a guy like Mario Goodrich making this roster over a 5th receiver as the number 7 cornerback. I would beg the question, why? Again, it's not to say these guys will be here week 1, but right now they currently are, and again, it begs that question, right?
Yeah, no, I think those are fair questions. I think when you look at it, you have to wonder how much of the decision making was based on which of these guys would make it through waivers to our practice squad and which of these guys wouldn't, right? And maybe that's one of those cases where Mario Goodrich, Eli Ricks, maybe these guys don't make it to your practice squad, so you have to keep them on the active roster, whereas Greg Ward automatically going to go to the practice squad.
Right, maybe Deion Keene.
Devin Allen, maybe he makes it to the practice squad. Britton Covey, those type of guys, maybe they make it to the practice squad with like a highly dense wide receiver class around the NFL. There's a ton of wide receivers that are available. So when you look at it from that perspective, maybe that's the case, right? Justin Evans, I thought that was interesting. They kept him over Kayvon Wallace.
Yeah.
In the safety room.
Which I'm completely fine with.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen nothing from Kayvon Wallace to make us say, oh, he's got to be on this roster. And I know our buddy from over in London, George Theodosis, he actually loves Justin Evans. He thinks he's going to be like that, oh my goodness, Marcus Epps type of player for us. He feels he can step in and do that. So that'll be interesting. The safety room all around, those 4 safeties, I would be comfortable with any of them on the field at any point. Now, that's not to say I don't want to upgrade that position.
Right.
That is the one position group that I would look at as needing an upgrade. You pointed out the linebackers. I did agree with you there. I think Reddick, that points to Reddick and Nolan Smith being involved in pass coverage in my eyes. Now, if they end up changing things, cutting different, if they end up cutting a Jomo or Street, If they cut, Patrick Johnson, maybe move him down to the practice squad or something. Maybe you add somebody else there as like a true linebacker. I saw that Kirksey guy. He got released by the Texans. He looked like a fine linebacker over the last few years. Just take it, take some swipes and throw some stuff at the wall.
I saw Eric Rowe was released as well.
That's interesting. Safety
I think
now.
he's with Miami now.
Yeah,
well, he was with Miami.
Yeah. So there's options out there, and like you said, how he's not done with this roster, and it's even been reported that he's going to be aggressive in improving the roster. So.
I want people to understand that we're just reacting to what's there right now. Like, I do not believe this is the week 1 roster. Even if it is, I have no problems with it. I'm just pointing out the irregularness to it. Yeah, the question mark to some of the position groups. I mean, and the last thing I would look at when you look at where they really stocked up in these position rooms, I'm looking at the special teams, man. And like you said, we still have to add a punter, which means someone else is going to be cut. They don't have a punter right now, currently, after cutting Sipos, right? You go back to training camp and preseason, Zach McPherson, Sean Bradley out for the year. They played on special teams last year, right? You look at some of the cuts in a Kayvon Wallace. He was a big special teams guy for them. So I'm looking around this roster. Well, none of the 13 defensive linemen are going to be playing special teams. Maybe Patrick Johnson gets out there. I don't know at this point. None of the 9 offensive linemen. So I'm looking like, where are they filling this special teams need at? Right? Yeah. Like, you would assume Christian Ellis. Like, my question, so Nakobe Dean played special teams for them last year. Well, now he's your number 1 linebacker. Is he still running down on kickoffs, or are you not risking that?
No,
I'm not risking it.
No, he's not playing on special.
Well, that's my point. Well, now you're down another special teamer.
So I think Patrick Johnson, he's a guy. He's been on special teams. They said they like him in that role.
I don't know why he's listed as an edge rusher. He's a linebacker.
He's a linebacker. Yeah, he's a linebacker. He's going to be put out there, and then I would imagine you have 7 corners. I mean, 3 or 4 of those guys are going to have to be on special teams.
Well,
2 of those guys are going to be
your top 3. Maddox, Bradbury, and Slay are not playing special teams.
Right. So Joe, Ringo, Ricks, Goodrich.
Yeah.
I can see all of those guys getting snaps.
Justin Evans will probably
whoever the backup safeties are. Backup tight ends. Maybe you have 4 tight ends. So they're going to have to play special teams. Yeah. Man, Boston Scott, I mean, he's going to have to get out there and play special teams.
They're going to fill the hole. They're going to fill the spots. My question is, how rough is it going to look to start the season?
Yeah, and how much of a focus
at times last year?
How much of a focus is special teams, man? Because like you said, we lost several of them to injury, of our special teams stars, you could say. But then you also have cut, several of the guys that you use in special. Britton Covey, Aaron Sipos. I mean, it looks like they're. I guess what it looks like to me is that they're trying to improve those special teams. They wanted to see what they had left in the guys that were here from last year. Then obviously didn't see what you wanted to see from guys like Aaron Sipos, the punter. So now you have to go out and improve them. And look, I know that
I get it, right? No, I was just gonna say I get it. Like, special teams, it's not the sexy thing, right? It's not offense, it's not defense. It's not an issue until it's an issue, if you get my point, right? We sit here, it's just special teams, just kick the ball to the end zone. Well, it's not an issue until week 2 on Thursday Night Football, when they're getting torched and the Vikings are starting their possession on the 40-yard line every time out. It's not an issue until it's an issue. So We'll see how it looks, man. We could be way off here. They might be perfectly fine at special teams. But to your point and what I was saying, they lost a bunch of pieces, whether due to injury or cuts or guys just moving on, and they haven't really done anything depth-wise. Again, we're looking at those positions where depth would play a role on special teams. Yeah. They have more depth at non-special teams positions than they do where you need those guys.
Yeah, and that's where I think, like, the 7 defensive tackles, like, you're gonna have to cut with at least one of those guys. Like, there's no
David
reason
Street or Jomo.
Yeah, to have seven defensive tackles when you have, a need at other positions as far as depth, that's irresponsible. But I think that's just them once again coveting the players that they think will not make it through
Mm-hmm.
waivers, because there's a lot of talk about Ajomo, Street. These guys considerably they wouldn't make it through waivers and make it to the practice squad. So you want to hold on to those guys. But yeah, man, it's weird. I don't know. I would like to like take it back and look at, the initial 53 man last year and what that looked like, because I would imagine what did we even have CGJ at this point? I can't remember exactly when we traded for him.
Yeah, I would say so, right?
Through
We're 11 or 12 days away from the regular season. I would say he just got here probably a couple days ago.
Yeah. So it's like, I would love to see the comparison of how final this roster really is right now, because I'd imagine there's several
and
changes.
Swope saying he believes 10 offensive linemen were kept last year to 9 this year. I would love to know the defensive line numbers.
Yeah.
I know we covered it, man. 13 defensive linemen? For why?
Yeah.
For why, Scotty?
Don't value the linebacker position, I guess, right? Like 3 linebackers, but they just don't play a traditional type of linebacker position. I guess that's the point, man.
Yeah,
it's interesting. The 7 DBs, I mean, the seven corners, 11 DBs total.
Yeah. So I'm looking up and down this roster right now. And again, I know I would say the tone of our first 15, 16 minutes has been a little off. I don't mean for it to be that way. We're only kind of pointing out, like I said, the question marks and maybe what's this roster going to look like in a week, because some of these position groups aren't nearly as deep enough as they normally are, or we would like them to be, most likely. Yeah. But the bottom line, as I said earlier on in the show, is this roster's loaded, man. So I'm kind of scrolling through here and I'm just looking at, maybe not star talent, but impact players, right? Borderline, what we would consider the stars of this team, right? Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position, duh. DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny would be my studs at running back. I know people love Kenneth Gainwell. Those would be my 2 studs. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith at receiver. You have Dallas Goedert. Your entire 5 starting offensive linemen are studs. Defensive line, BG, Reddick, Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, DT, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams. Linebacker, Zach Cunningham, Nakobe Dean. Corner, Bradbury, Maddox, Slay. They've got pieces all over this roster. So my question to you right now is, although it's weirdly shaped so far, is this the best roster you've seen the Eagles head into a regular season with in quite some time?
It's a loaded question, man, because it comes down to is this roster better than last year's roster?
Mm-hmm.
What I would say it can be better.
Okay.
Is it? We have to see that play out first. I can't give it the nod without seeing it, just because love Jalen Carter, love Jordan Davis. You did have Javon Hargrave, and we know what he is. Like, we know what
right. It's an unknown if that's an upgrade. I feel you.
Reed Blankenship, I love him. I think he's going to be a stud this year. I think he's going to stand out. But you did have CGJ and Marcus Epps in the safety department last year. So, like, Sidney Brown, love the idea of him. Think he's going to be a stud even as a rookie.
I get it.
Unknown. But linebacker, Nakobe Dean, I'm probably higher on him than the other 2 linebackers that we had last year. Mm-hmm. So, to be fair to him, that being said, he hasn't shown anything that says he is.
I think it's a fair point.
But it's interesting because you look at it from like a depth perspective, and like Olamide Zaccheaus is a 4th wide receiver. I think that's better than Zach Pascal.
Yep.
And you go through your 3 running back or your 4 running backs in the running back room. It's a deeper running back room, whereas
Miles Sanders, what Jalen Hurts is heading into this season compared to what he was at this time last season.
Absolutely. So there's arguments, man. I mean, the
corners,
offensive line looks good. Yeah, It's interesting, and that I guess the offensive line. The other thing I would point out: Cam Jurgens versus Isaac Seumalo. We often forget about Seumalo and his
Right.
contributions, but
I think
it has the potential.
yeah.
And
I think it's a fair
we
point.
need these question marks to pan out. Reed and
Yeah.
Nakobe Dean, those type of guys that we believe in, they have to become what we believe they are.
No, I think everything you said is a very, very fair point after talking through it, because I'm bought. So I just, my gut tells me this is the best, most talented roster we may have ever seen or have seen in a very long
Because
time.
guys are going to
Last
get
year's was up
better
there.
that
Yeah,
were on the team last year.
exactly.
AK is going to be better.
Like,
Smitty's going to be better. Hertz is going to be better. We hope,
100%.
right?
Goddard, you would hope, takes another step, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just bought in because I believe in this draft class. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. We believe in Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis. So it's a gut for me. But to your point, I could understand why we can't see that when they haven't played a snap yet, right? Like, yes, do I believe Jalen Carter is a step up from Javon Hargrave? Yeah, I think he will be.
Yeah,
but we don't know that. Javon Hargrave just had a 10-sack season. Jalen Carter hasn't played a snap yet in the regular season. Nolan Smith hasn't played a snap yet. We had TJ Edwards. We love Nakobe Dean. Hasn't been in this position yet to start like this and be the Mike linebacker, right? We like Reed Blankenship. It felt like he played for 30 seconds last year. Obviously, I'm kidding. I know he played more when TJ Gardner-Johnson was out, but you kind of like CGJ was the star of the safety room, not Reed Blankenship. So there's a lot of question marks and a lot of unknowns simply because of age and rookies. But I'm bought into this team, man. I'm bought into this roster that Howie's constructed. No matter what we think about the 4 wide receivers so far and the no punter and the 4 tight ends, I get it. It's kind of quirky looking at the moment. But the bottom line is you can hit every position group and say that the Philadelphia Eagles and take their opponent, and you can say that the Philadelphia Eagles check, are going to be better than 99.9% of their opponent's positions.
Yeah, because while we sit here and point out holes on this roster, you can go around, look around the league and look at the holes on other rosters, right? And I think the difference this year, the reason it feels kind of refreshing is because it's not like, older veterans on the squad anymore, right? We've refreshed this team with young talent, youth out of the draft, and these are like highly touted players coming out of the draft that we picked up from this Georgia defense, right? That's won 2 national championships in a row. So like the pedigree that comes behind these young players in this defense, it stands out to me, and it's exciting for the future because they're going to have a few growing pains, I'm sure, at some point throughout this season, but it's only going to make them stronger going forward. Right. It's only going to drive them going forward and make them better, man. It's an exciting season. And when you look at the young talent on this roster, I think that's what we can be excited about. This team is coming off a Super Bowl appearance. Yes, they lost to the greatest quarterback of all time.
Ooh.
They go into this, they lose the Super Bowl, right? But then they come back and they refresh the roster with youth. And I think that's a good thing when you're coming out of a Super Bowl appearance. You got to kind of take some of that tread off and add some new wheels, right? And that's kind of what you saw in the, that first Super Bowl the Eagles won. They didn't do that after they won the Super Bowl. They just brought all the same guys
back. Hold on. I want to take a detour. I want to backtrack for a second. Did they lose to the greatest quarterback of all time? Or did they beat the greatest quarterback of all time?
I got a little what should I call that? I'm getting ahead of it, I guess. Patrick Mahomes
ahead of the curve. I respect it. I caught that though. I caught that.
Yeah. To be fair to to the GOAT, Tom Brady. As of right now, Tom Brady still has that title.
Hey man, no,
it's coming from Mahomes, man. He's too good, but
I hear you. I would also say one thing you brought up is excitement and new, right? And new doesn't always equate to better, but I would say one thing's for sure. We can look at these holes on the roster and we could talk about these new pieces, such as a Christian Ellis, such as a Zach Cunningham, a Justin Evans. And we don't know how that's going to play out. We don't know if they have anything left. If Zach Cunningham has anything left in the tank. We don't know if Justin Evans can recoup from those 3 injuries the same way he did last year. We have no idea. But the bottom line is, at least it's something new. It's not Kayvon Wallace again in that safety room where we kind of know this movie, man. It's Terrell Edmonds and it's Justin Evans. And maybe it's not better, but maybe, just maybe, it can be. Right? It's Zach Cunningham and Nakobe Dean. It's not, I know TJ Edwards was solid, but it's not some of the linebackers of the last 4 or 5 seasons. Maybe it's not better, but it's new. That's the whole point. And I think that's what defensive coordinator Sean Desai brings to this team as well. Maybe it's not better. Maybe the sacks and the quarterback pressures aren't there like they were last year. Maybe the turnovers aren't there like they were last year. But it's new. And it gives you the excitement that maybe they can be even more dominant or help out the offense a bit more.
It's interesting you bring that up because it hasn't been talked about, right? Like, not as much as you would think, coming from a team that just went to the Super Bowl, losing both of their coordinators, right? Offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. So not only is some of the pieces on the roster new, but the defensive coordinator, the scheme, the coaching mentality, right? The way he handles things on a day-to-day basis. This is all new. And, there was a conversation. I was listening to 97.5. This was probably a couple weeks back. And they were talking about the defense this year. And they were talking about how, from a numbers standpoint, probably not going to be as good as Jonathan Gannon's defense last year.
It's very hard to do that.
Number 1 pass defense in the NFL, right? And we were annoyed with Jonathan Gannon. We wanted him out of the league. So while it might not look as good statistically, it may be more appealing to the eyes. And so to that standpoint, new, maybe better, might not be better defense when you look at it holistically from a metric standpoint.
Statistically.
But when you look at the way the defense comes out and presents themselves, comes out, punches an offense in the face, it might look a little different. It might feel a little bit better than what we were watching last year. And we're going to have a lot better competition to see them play against in the regular season. So,
no, again, it's another great point because you and I actually, we clipped last week's episode and it's out on the YouTube channel, but we basically talked about how the Eagles defense statistically last season was tops in the league, right? 70 plus sacks, broke a record, right?
Yeah.
But no one felt them. No one was I don't know if anyone was afraid to play the Philadelphia Eagles defense besides the San Francisco 49ers, but that's neither here nor there. You mentioned something a second ago, the number 1 pass defense in the league. Let me ask you a question. Statistically, yes. But were they really the number 1 pass defense in the league? Because we can beat up on the Washington Commanders, and we can beat up on Daniel Jones, and we can beat up on Brock Purdy and these other guys. But when it comes down to the bottom line of Gannon's first year and what you saw in the Super Bowl, when they played great quarterbacks, they struggled. They got picked apart. They couldn't get off the field on third downs. They struggled in short yardage pass defense, as Swope is pointing out here. So statistically, they had the turnovers. And I love the personnel. I'm not saying anything. Slay, Bradbury, Maddox, they can definitely be tops in the league in pass coverage. But what I'm saying is, did it feel like that against the greatest competition this league has to offer? No, it did not.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a different type of defense that Sean Desai can bring out of this unit.
And I think to that point, with everything you just pointed out, with what Swope just pointed out there in the comments section, you look at the way this roster is constructed and where we're seeing new things, right, on this defense and where they decided to go in a different route. It's at the safety position. It's at the linebacker position. It's in those positions that are going to be defending on those types of plays, the short yardage, the mid-range type of intermediate passing game that we saw us get killed by in the Super Bowl and against good quarterbacks last year. they come out, they put a guy like Dean, who's a little bit more coverage savvy, smarter than the last two linebackers that we had. So maybe he can identify some of those situations early. You look at the safety position, just trying something new, right?
Yeah.
Guys get to the ball quick. You look at Sidney Brown, Justin Evans, Terrell Edmonds. They get to the ball quick. Even Reed Blankenship gets to the ball quick. So I think as you kind of painted that picture, maybe that is what the Eagles are looking at. They keep 7 cornerbacks, right? Avonte Maddox went down last year. We were lost in the slot. We were lost. They cut Josiah Scott this year. They didn't keep him. They kept 7 other DBs other than him, right? So you're going to have Job. You're going to have Ringo, Ricks, Goodrich, any of those guys that you're going to get to try out in that slot position if Maddox goes down. All kudos to Maddox, right? He's a great player. He tends to get injured a lot. That's his downfall. So you do need a replacement there, and that was cause for some of the issues last year. So as you painted that picture, starting to see the vision a little bit more of what I think the Eagles may be doing here and how they may be approaching things. Trying something new, not let it of your team. Let's try something new, even if it's not clear-cut better. It may be better just by fit.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I feel, man. And listen, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or take away from what this team accomplished last year whatsoever. But if you want to compare quarterback play and opponents from last year's schedule to this year's, we better have a different look defensively.
You have to. Yeah.
Because they are not going to run through that schedule like they did last year if they are getting picked apart on third downs again by Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers beat us up a little bit, even in the game we won against Green Bay when Jordan Love had to come in at home and everything like that. That was a rough game. We took a big lead. They come back. You're not going to have that luxury, man. You play Josh Allen. You play Patrick Mahomes. You play Aaron Rodgers. You play Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You play the Niners again, even though we like to laugh about Brock Purdy, but we know what the rest of that offense is capable of. You play the Seattle Seahawks. This schedule's a lot more difficult, and the opposing quarterbacks are tops in the league. We've seen what they look like against Dak, Mahomes, Herbert. We've seen that movie 2 years ago. They need to have a different look defensively because even though the numbers were there, it wasn't quite enough to hold on to 2 10-point leads in a Super Bowl against a great quarterback.
Exactly. And so you asked the question earlier, do I think this team is better than it was last year? Obviously, I said no to that just for now. We'll see. They have the potential to be. But the offense
is better. The
offense is better. And so as we're talking through the defense, I'm thinking, man, there's going to be some games, though, where the offense just carries the defense. They're just that good. I look at this offense, and it should be even more finely tuned than it was last year. There's going to be additions to the offense that weren't there last year. They're going to be on the field a lot more, I think, man, and that's exciting within itself.
I think that's a great point, man. I'm glad you kind of reeled that back to that side of the ball because we just spent a lot of time talking about defense and what it could potentially look like. And I do have high hopes for this defense and high expectations for Hassan Reddick and Jalen Carter and all these boys, right? But the offense.
Yeah.
We can have all the question marks at linebacker and safety you want when the offense averages 31 points per game potentially. And you're right. They're better than they were last year. You lose Isaac Seumalo. You plug in Cam Jurgens. I don't expect much of a drop-off there. Hell, you might even be better than you were last year. Jalen Hurts gets another training camp, gets another fall off season, see where he kind of steps up again from his progression last season.
Yeah.
Same wide receiving core, except you add Olamide Zaccheaus, who's a deep threat compared to Zach Pascal from last year. I like the Albert O trade as a second tight end in the red zone. And then you get to the running back room. And Miles Sanders, yes, he had a career year last year. Went for over 1,000 yards. He was great. This running back room's talented, bro.
Yeah.
They're talented. They're complementary. They're explosive. They're tough. They can pass catch. They can do everything you want from a room at a very, very high level. And they all bring something different to the table.
Yeah.
Now, no offense to our boy Boston Scott. When we play the Giants, he can get all the playing time he wants. I'm not saying there's not a role for him here. Boston Scott doesn't need to see the field, Scotty.
Yeah.
I know that sounds harsh. He doesn't need to see the field. You have DeAndre Swift. You have Rashad Penny. You have Kenneth Gainwell, who apparently they love so much already. Boston Scott doesn't need a handful of carries every week. He doesn't need to be trotting out there on third down on the first drive of the game. Is that too harsh to say?
No, I don't think so at all, man. I think the only place I want to see Boston Scott is on special teams, and the occasional insert if a guy goes down. But yeah, the three guys in front of him are the three guys I'm going to roll with in all the situations listed above. And I do see Swope's comments here. Who wants to keep switching back and forth sharing scores?
And I think one of these comments is a very, very good segue to our next topic of the show here.
Yeah, no, I feel that because I just wanted to comment on it.
Yeah.
It's not me saying that the offense needs to carry the team throughout the season. There's just games where you're going to be playing the Cowboys. You're going to be playing the Chiefs. These high-power offenses that are going to put up points regardless of what defense they're playing against. Just like the Eagles. The Eagles are that high-caliber offense.
Right. And it's just how the league is nowadays.
It is how the league is. It's the way the league is. It's built around offense, high flying.
Favors the offense. It's a pass-heavy league.
I know we're using the Super Bowl as a reference, but you're going against arguably the most talented quarterback of all time. You're going against one of the greatest head coaches and offensive masterminds of all time. So to that point, the Chiefs are going to score points, right? Like, you're not going into that game in the Super Bowl thinking you're going to beat the Chiefs, 31 to 18 or 31 to 17. They're going to score 25 plus points in the game, which means you're going to have to match it. But to be fair to Swope, I agree, man. At the end of the day, you do want your defense to be there and you want other teams to fear them, right? As the San Francisco defense, for an example, is looked at. That's how I want the Eagles defense to be looked at and be feared. Right. So to Swope's point, I want it. Just don't know.
I agree. And I agree with everything you're saying. Look, I'm not giving the defenses any excuses just because the offense is capable of dropping 42 on you. That doesn't mean I want to see a game where it's 42 to 38 and we just squeak out of there with a minute left in the fourth.
The Lions game last year.
The defense is going to hear from
like that. No.
But when you have an offense at this level, it makes you worry less about the holes defensively. And I agree with you, bro. I agree that they struggled on third down, third and shorts, couldn't get off the field at times. 110% agree. But as frustrating as they were at times, as frustrating as it was to watch in the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts went 14-1 in the regular season last year.
Yeah.
2-1. Like, they won a lot of games, even with their deficiencies defensively that frustrate us.
Let me ask you.
If Sean Desai brings that different taste to the defense, I wonder what they look like this year.
One last question, because it is time to move into the fightings. But when you look at this defense and you look into this season, would you be more willing to give up the occasional big play just to make sure you do stop some of those more short yardage plays?
Yes.
Like if it's a 60-yard touchdown bomb that happens, 1 out of 5 games. Right?
1,000 times over, bro. And that's the one thing that I know you and I hated about Gannon. We hated about Jim Schwartz, even though they won a Super Bowl with Schwartz here. Man, scared money don't make no money, Scotty.
Yeah.
So the bend but don't break, the quarters defense, to keep everything in front of me. Man, I am so tired.
It can work. I'm tired
of it. 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3 situations and just feeling so helpless on my couch where they're picking this up here. Is it going to be frustrating to give up the 70-yard touchdown? Yeah. But how many times is that going to happen over the course of a season?
And see,
not many, man.
That's when you have the offense on the other side that can strike back quick.
Not just that. You have the personnel defensively that you should have trust and faith in. You should have trust and faith in Darius Slay or James Bradbury not to get torched for 70-yard touchdown. I'm not saying leave them on an island, but my goodness, dude, like the whole rush 3 on 3rd and 9 and keep the corners 8 yards off the ball. Stop. So that's what I mean. When you say, would you rather, I guess a little bit more press coverage, a little more meet me on the line of scrimmage on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, rather than sag off so they can hit the slant route that's just boom right at the sticks and get down. Yeah, I would give up the occasional big play or big touchdown to stop those.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to lose games because your defense gave up 4 70-yard touchdowns. It's not going to happen. They're not going to give up that many big plays because they're too talented not to do so.
You're giving their offense, you're giving them plays when you could just instead force them to make plays.
Yeah,
that's
it's infuriating to watch. And another thing, I love this defensive line. I love the sack totals from last year. Man, you got it. You can't just rely on the front four to get. Again, another reason they struggled in the Super Bowl. You just continue to rely on 4 guys to get home. And against a guy like Mahomes, where that clearly wasn't working, you probably had to throw in a few different wrinkles, a few different looks at the line of scrimmage, bring a safety down in the box, throw a linebacker around the edge, whatever you got to do. Yeah. No, we're going to rush the same 4 guys. Maybe I'll throw a 5th guy out there on the edge, and we're just going to try to get home because we're talented enough. You weren't in that moment, man. I would say this as well. Before this is our segue to the Phillies. I hear you. And I know this isn't a very good comparison because the way the Phillies rotation and bullpen are throwing right now, they're like 2nd or 3rd best in the league right now. But let's go back to last year and how this roster was constructed when they signed Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos. They signed Trey Turner, right? They trade for Brandon Marsh. This roster and lineup was essentially constructed last year because Dave Dombrowski said, we're just going to try to outscore you. Now, maybe that's not the best logic. Maybe that's not the way to win a World Series. It got them to a World Series. It got the Eagles to a Super Bowl, but it wasn't quite enough to get over the hump. But I relate this because maybe, just maybe, the offense is good enough to do that. Maybe, just maybe, the Eagles' offense is good enough to not carry, like Scotty said, but to, in one game like a Super Bowl, be good enough for the defense to get 1 or 2 stops and win a ball game. Just like the Phillies' offense is good enough to take them on a Red October ride back to a World Series.
Yeah. Because you look at
the team, man.
Hey, before you go in,
okay,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You said one thing that brought something to my mind, man. The one difference between that Super Bowl loss last year and the Super Bowl win against Tom Brady was defense making one play. That was it. I'm sorry. Go ahead into the Phillies. Listen, you sparked me with that. That one just it sparked something in my head, man.
No, I'll rewind it for a second here too. It is one thing that keeps me up at night sometimes, man. And I know we won that Super Bowl, but why is it? Why you like, to your point about what I give up a big play to stop and slow down those short yardage plays. And I said, yes. Why is it that we have been to 2 Super Bowls in the last half decade, and combined through 8 quarters, our collective defenses have made 1 stop? Do you know how frustrating that is? We have played 8 quarters of Super Bowl football in 5 years, and our combined defenses have made 1 effing stop. That's not pleasurable football to watch, man.
Yeah.
It was pleasurable to see what Jalen Hurts put out in the field last year against Mahomes. It was awesome to see Nick Foles and take that offense and win the Super Bowl. But, man, it shouldn't take a Herculean effort to win a Super Bowl from your quarterback and your offense. I mean, don't get me wrong. They have to be great.
Yeah.
But you're talking about, like, dude, Nick Foles literally might have had the greatest Super Bowl performance by a quarterback in NFL history, and he won. And Jalen Hurts may have topped that last year, but lost because these defenses can't get off the goddamn field.
Yeah.
Similarity between Schwartz, similarity between Gannon, those bend but don't break defenses. And I wonder who they don't work against, Scotty.
The great quarterbacks.
The great quarterbacks. That's why I need to see something else from Sean Desai in this defense this year. 100% swope. He may have brought me back on board with this defense needs to be better. But we do have to move on, man, because we got to talk about this team right here. I said it. Yes, Colin Cowherd would not like me. I'm a backwards hat kind of guy, but I had to rep this Phillies hat that I found in a trunk over here in my basement like a week ago. I don't even know where I got it from, but it's nice, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This Phillies team, man, I texted you this last night, and I want to start the conversation here because this is how great they have been. I watched this team get hot and ride that wave, ride that streak all the way to a World Series. Not just a World Series, but a 2-1 lead at home in the World Series. That's how streaky and good they were last year.
Yeah.
This is the best baseball I have seen this group ever play. I'll say that again. They went to a World Series last year. And this right now is the best baseball the Phillies have played in the Bryce Harper era. That's how goddamn good this team is right now. The bullpen, sub-3 ERA in the month of August. The starters, around a 3 ERA in the month of August. The lineup, hold on. What are we at now, Scotty?
57 home runs.
57 home runs in the month of August. They are one away, possibly this afternoon, from breaking the Dodgers record, or 2 away from breaking the Dodgers record for most home runs hit by a franchise in the National League and MLB history.
Broad Street Bombers.
They are so effing good right now, man.
Yeah.
From top to bottom. They are 7-1 so far on this 9-game homestand. Right?
Man.
They are averaging over 7 runs per game. Before last night, they were holding opponents to just over 3 runs per game. Obviously, they gave up a couple late. They ended up winning 12-7, but they're holding opponents to around 4 runs per game, and they're averaging 7 to 8 runs per game right now. The bullpen's holding things down. Nola, Wheeler, back-to-back great starts. The power's there. Bryce Harper, where's the power? Oh, my God. Their top 4. Right? Schwarber, Castellanos, Turner, and Harper each have at least 8 home runs in the month of August. The Braves were the last franchise to do that. Forget it, 3 seasons ago or 4 seasons ago. They are so good right now. And the thing that stands out about them the most, above the home runs, above the pitching, above everything like that, they're calm.
Yeah.
They're cool. They're collected. They're together. They have been down almost every single night over the last 10 or 11 games. Almost always down 1 or 2-0 in the first or second inning. And it doesn't seem to matter. They were down 4-2 in the 6th last night.
Yep.
And then scored 6 runs. Nick Castellanos, leadoff double. Ooh. You want to intentionally walk Bryce Harper with nobody out? Okay, Alec Boehm's going to take you deep for a 5-4 lead. Bryson Stott, pinch hits late in the game. Infield single, 2-run upper deck home run is next at bat. They're unbelievable, dude. They are unbelievable, and I am so back in love with this ball club again.
Hey, I want to take this moment to, just give ourselves a pat on the back, because I think we've been saying this since what, June, July, when everybody's freaking out.
Earlier.
Everybody's freaking out about Trey Turner. Everybody's freaking out
Yeah.
about Bryce Harper's power. And you get to mid-July and it's us sitting here on the Faithful Fanatics saying, just relax. Once, Trey Turner and Bryce Harper get going, they're the stars of the team. They're the two best players offensively on this team. Once they get going, then we'll see the real Phillies team. We'll see the real World Series contender.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point, all the way through July, up until we get to this August month, you've had guys like Stott, Bohm, carrying the load, Castellanos carrying the load for this team. And now you're starting to see the big bats wake up. And they're combining. It's not that Bohm and Stott and the rest of the guys are calming down. They're staying at the same place, and now Bryce and Trey Turner have come to the party. And this is the product that we get and deserve. And I think we deserve a pat on the back for hanging in there with this team when there was a ton of people that were out on this team in July, right?
There were a ton of people that were out on this team in May.
We don't pat ourselves on the back very often here, but when you're right, you're right. And this team is coming around, man. You look at Bryce Harper. You talked about the power being back. 9 of his 15 home runs in this month. 9 home runs in August. Trey Turner, an 18-game hit streak at the CBP right now. Like, that is insanity. That's
a base-clearing triple and a home run last night again.
After what? He was 0 for 3 to start the game. Like, yeah.
I love your point because we don't do it often. Even though we're right a lot here on the show. No, I'm just kidding. But we don't do it often. But don't get me wrong. Like going through those long summer months and it's just Sixers and Phillies or just Phillies.
Yeah.
And they're struggling and Trey Turner sitting 240 and Bryce's power isn't there and they're losing games to bad teams. Don't get me wrong. It was frustrating and we held them accountable. But the difference was being frustrated and analyzing a loss or bad play by a player and making declarations such as this team isn't a playoff team. This team can't get back or win a World Series. They're not good enough. No, see, that's where you lost me at that point in time because that was just silly.
Yeah.
And now I hope you feel silly because this is what Dave Dombrowski constructed. Now, I don't know if anyone expected 57 home runs in a month, but we definitely expected power. And I would say this, we just had a conversation a couple minutes ago about the Eagles and their roster right now. We looked at the 53-man roster and we asked, right, is this team heading into 2023 better than last year's team, better than 2022, who we thought was the most talented, deepest roster we've ever seen an Eagles team put together?
Yeah.
Well, I want to come to that point with the Phillies now.
Yeah.
Because that's the difference. That's why, and I know how incredibly tough it is to even get back to the mountaintop that is the World Series. And I know the Braves are a juggernaut. And I know the Dodgers are on fire. And they're going to be right in the way of the Phillies to get back there. But this team is better than they were last year. And they're not just better, they're a little bit more stable and like I know we have talked about their inconsistency this year, and it remains true, but they've now been doing this for a month and a half.
Yeah.
That's not anything you really last year we saw it for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they go, no. You're seeing it for about 6 or 7 weeks right now.
Yeah.
That's how good this is. Really, we could go back to the beginning of June, which was since they've been the second best team in baseball since June 2nd or whatever. But my point about them being better, man, their rotation deeper, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Nola's had his struggles this year, but Wheeler, Nola's been great his last 2. You have Walker I don't know if he still leads the NL in wins, but he's right there, right? Rangers coming back from injury. Sanchez has been phenomenal in his couple months in a starter role. You bring in Lorenzen, who's had his ups and downs so far, but the rotation is better. It's deeper.
Yeah.
The bullpen, it's deeper.
Yeah.
You have a guy like Kimbrel who, worries us at times, but he was an all-star closer this year.
Yeah.
You have a closer. You have Alvarado. You have Sir Anthony. You have Matt Strum. Jeff Hoffman looks like a piece you can use. Not to mention when you get to the postseason, 2 of those starters can then enter the bullpen.
Yeah.
And then you get to the lineup. And I would like to say, well, Trey Turner. And yeah, when Trey Turner plays like this and you see the Phillies results as a team, the $300 million shortstop is playing like the best shortstop in baseball. That definitely elevates a Phillies team that went to a World Series last year. But the difference to me is that you took an Alec Boehm and you took a Bryson Stott and you took a Brandon Marsh, who were good last year. And you thought they'd be good this year. Maybe Stott can take a little leap. Maybe whatever. No, they're not just good, Scotty. They're dangerous.
Yeah.
They're great right now. Yeah. That's the biggest difference. That's what makes this lineup even deeper than it was last year. Because on paper, we could say, oh, you got Stott in the 7 hole. But did it mean a whole lot last year? Like, we know he had the long at bat against Strider that he ripped a double, and he was good last year.
Solid.
Scotty, you almost can't pitch to the kid this season.
Yeah.
Alec Boehm, career high home runs.
Yeah.
The power there. Clutch hitting there. You almost can't pitch. They pitched around Bryce Harper to get to Alec Boehm, and he hit a moonshot to left center field to take the lead last night. Brandon Marsh went from a dude that might hit 240 for you to a dude that could hit 295 for you.
Castellanos, all-star this year.
Castellanos.
He was nothing last year, right? He was an O-for last year. And now he's an all-star.
He was a guy that came up in the World Series, and you were just like, oh, God.
He's going to swing at this, isn't he?
He came up with a leadoff. If Harper got on and it was a man on first with no outs to try to start a rally, and Costi came up, you're just like, please just don't hit into a double play. Strike out, fly
really
out,
was like that.
Don't hit into a double play. But no, man, that's where we can end the show today. There's not much else to say. I can't come on here and break down what the Phillies are doing. That would take 8 hours because they're doing everything
what they're supposed to, though.
But there's not much else to do except for praise what this team is doing right now and just enjoy this ride. Like, yeah, it's still August. We have over a month left of baseball. There's 16 games over 500. They're on pace for 90 wins. And if they continue to play ball in any sort of close fashion to what they're doing right now, they're going over 90.
Yeah.
In the next month.
You pointed out how much better the roster is just from top to bottom, and it just speaks to Dave Dombrowski, man. Covered all the bases, literally, right? Like these holes that were apparent for this roster. You look at Rojas, right? He comes up and he's becoming borderline everyday starter, right, in the outfield. Christian Pache, I know he was in and out of the line. He's injuries here and there throughout this season, but he was solid this year. It's incredible when you take down the line. Yeah, so Edmundo Sosa.
When he traded for Sosa last year, he was hitting sub 200. He had like 1 home run on the year for the Cardinals, and me and George Ryder right here in this very basement. He said, "Oh, he's a good player." I laughed in his face because what was this dude besides a glove going to bring to this team that's trying to get to a World Series? Scotty, like, is he part of your best 9? Should Edmundo Sosa be starting in the playoffs? No. But is it the end of the world if Edmundo Sosa's your not 8 or 9 hole hitter playing third base?
Yeah.
No, it's not. He's somehow hitting balls 400 feet this year. I don't know. Kevin Long, I don't know what the hell it is.
Oh, my goodness.
But these guys, even their bench, you mentioned it. You're going to have Pache. You have Rojas.
Yeah.
Cave, I'm not a Jake Cave guy, but he does bring pop off the bench from the left side of the box. Sosa can hit better. When you get to the postseason and the rosters expand, maybe you bring Derek Hall up in case you're in a 1-run game late and you need to pinch hit for power. They're good. They're deeper in every aspect of their roster. And now the stars are shining.
Yeah. That's the key. That's
the bottom line
story
right now
of the show.
I mean, Bryce Harper has murdered 2 baseballs in back-to-back nights. Like, you think I'm joking? No. Murdered. I don't know how the laces and the cover of the ball is still on.
Bryce Harper home runs are just different, man. The pop, the sound.
They're all different.
It's ridiculous. One last thing before we end the show. We got like 1 minute here, man.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons says he would return to Philadelphia. How'd you feel about that?
You can fuck right off. I'll say it. You can fuck right off.
I thought that was hilarious. I don't even know what makes him say that.
What is he talking about? I have nothing but love for Philly. It's all love there. If I got traded, I go back and die. Bro, you put on a show almost as bad as what I've seen James Harden do the last 3 off seasons to force his way out of somewhere. You were more toxic that offseason than James Harden is right now.
Yeah.
But you would like to come back here? And not just that, after you got your way out, every time you came back here or every time you played the Sixers, there were issues. Like it was a known media spectacle.
Yeah.
There were scuffles, there were arguments, there were foreheads to forehead, everything, even when you were on the bench.
Yeah.
So why would you come back here?
It blew my mind. But, maybe he's in a different headspace this season, right? Going into this year.
I have no clue. Because I'm not in a different headspace. And I'm good, okay?
I don't need that toxic character.
No, I'm all right. With that said, guys, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Phaithful Fanatic Show. We'll be back live 8:20 a.m. Friday morning, breaking down more Eagles and Phillies talk, maybe some more Sixers as well. We're recording the NFC West as well as our top 10 quarterback to receiver duos in the league. Today, those will be released on the DSM NFL Turf Talk YouTube channel tomorrow afternoon. So make sure you are subscribed to all of the new YouTube channels, DSM-Media-Philadelphia right here, and DSM-Media-Turf Talk on the other channel as well. For myself, for Scotty, have a great rest of your Wednesday.